Hello and welcome to the Michael Mama Show, Ancient Secrets Revealed. We're coming to you from Mount Soma, home of the Sri Someshwara Temple in the mountains of western North Carolina. And it's kind of rainy here today, which is good. We could use the rain. The subject today, I don't know, Scotty, I woke up in the middle of the night and felt like not sleeping, so I put on YouTube and I started watching what is it called? Mystery History or Mystery History, I think it is. And I can relate to the guy, you know, not just what he's saying, but kind of his position. He is looking at all these ancient ruins and how obviously they're not just 3,000 years old, and obviously there have been multiple ancient civilizations stacked one on top of the other. One is forgotten, another one comes up. Like in the case of the pyramids, but a lot of the ancient ruins, they have a whole different system of construction with granite blocks or what have you. And clearly it's just a whole different technology, different civilizations. He goes into that, and he's right. If he's wrong about one thing, he says there are three, and I give him credit for that because those are the three that are identifiable. So I respect him for that. But, you know, it's gone on a lot longer than that. And that's right out of the Veda. And then he talked about, but you see, he was talking about how he feels like there's a group of almost evil people out there that are intentionally deceiving the public with respect to like archaeology and how old the pyramids are, and also he was talking about Darwin's theory of evolution. And really, I don't see it quite that way. I mean, I don't think there's a bunch of evil people out there that are intentionally deceiving people, at least not that simplistically. But, you know, you have to understand really that if somebody works, well, like even with the Big Bang Theory, we have physicists that dedicated their lives into developing all these theories of physics. Their entire careers are based upon it. And then they put out this James Webb telescope, and clearly their theories are wrong. And it's not that easy to say, okay, and switch, and boom, my whole career has been a complete failure type thing, you know. And that's true with the archaeologists. And also, as I've said, with respect to Darwin's theory, studies have shown evolution happened way too fast. Can't be right. Couldn't just be survival of the fittest, you know. But like this mystery history guy was saying that, you know, he becomes a, what do they call it? Not a Darwinist, but a, what do they call it? Divine intervention. What do they call that? At any rate, that Darwin's not right and that people are coming from the divine, you know. And in a sense, he's right. And in a sense, Darwin is right. This isn't me talking. This is Vedic, okay? But it makes so much sense. And that's the thing about the Veda. The more you study it, the more sense it makes across the board. If you're talking about physics, if you're talking about human psychology, whatever it is you're talking about, it's like, this makes sense. And I mean, if there's one definition of truth that in the relative that would hold up, it's like if something applies to everything and it's seamless and makes sense in every regard, that's truth, you know? And if we're going to define truth that way, then it's there in the Veda. But with respect to the evolution of species, Darwin was right in one sense, but also there's this infinite intelligence at the basis of everything that breathes intelligence, perfection, if you will, into relativity. and speeds the whole evolutionary process forward. And one place it did that was with re-evolution of species. Another place that did it is in a more of a macrocosm scale. And we've talked about that before, the different incarnations of Vishnu, you know, and how sometimes it's a fish, other times it's a boar, you know. And so it's all right there, and it's all explained right there. And it makes sense. It's logical, and it's consistent with heart and mind once you get onto it. But now, having said that, we're not claiming that we have all the answers here. We can see that, oh my gosh, it's all right there in the Veda, but that doesn't mean that we thoroughly understand it. In fact, as it says in the Veda, the human mind, the human nervous system itself isn't capable of fathoming the depth and breadth of the nature of the whole thing. But the thing is, we approximate it. We get closer and closer to it. We understand it more and more deeply. It makes more and more sense. And we can say that about all the different religions. There is a sense of inner divinity, of divinity. Might not even be considered inner divinity, you know. God is in the church. It's not in you, as some people are taught. But just this sense of divinity. And people dedicate their lives to it. They believe in it with conviction. They base their lives upon it. But the question is now ever increasing levels of clarity and understanding. And once you get onto the Vedic literature and onto the nature of the Rig Veda and all that, then you have a really powerful tool, if we can say it that way, to help refine your understanding more and more. But we don't want to take Vedic knowledge and turn it into a fanaticism. In other words, latch on to one superficial understanding of it and say we get it, and then that's it. You know, we get it. No, it's not like that. I call it the I get it syndrome. Now, this guy, Mystery History, whatever, was expressing his frustration on this YouTube video I watched last night. And about, you know, we're being deceived, we're being lied to, all like that. And again, it's not, I don't think it's all really necessarily intentional, because you get some scientists there, they say, okay, we can pull out different examples. Let's do global warming for one, climate change. And so what happens then is politicians get into the notion of climate change, and oh, we have to do all this. And so they're going to stick to their guns for the credibility of their own campaign, if nothing else, once they've taken a stand, you know. Otherwise, what do they call them, you know, when they keep changing their mind? And so then the government gets involved, government funding gets involved. Government funding then only funds research that supports their perspective. And if research comes out that contradicts it, and this applies to archaeology, Big Bang Theory, physics, everything, it's ignored, it's refuted, it's not. And how do they do that? They don't give grants to support research to the contrary. And so the people, the scientists that maybe see the alternative viewpoint, their careers are destroyed. They don't get any government funding. They don't get any income. They fall to the wayside. And that's not so much negative intent. It's like survival of the fittest is right there, you know. Now, with respect to spirituality and respect to Vedic understanding, you know, I share his frustration in a way, because I taught for so many years. What is it, 30 years or however long it's been? And that's really my whole life. But in my own organization, it's been the past, 30 years. 94 it started. And one thing I found, some great students, bright people, really loved what I taught. But, you know, when I stopped teaching, with COVID came out and all that, and then I talked to them, and it's, I'm sorry to say it, and I mean no offense, because it's just the nature of things, but the understanding starts to get clouded, starts to wane, starts to get distorted, and they come back and they talk about their latest, spiritual explorations, and it's like, oh man, didn't you hear what I said? And it's no fault, because here's the thing. And the Vedic pundits, I don't know how they do it. I can't do it. But they're very much like, oh yeah, it's Kali Yuga, age of ignorance, and so people believe what they believe, And to me, it's like you see somebody about to drive off a cliff. You say, hey, wait, you're going to drive off a cliff. Which is why I do these podcasts, why I taught all those years, to try to say, hey, let's take a look at this. It's there. It makes sense. It's so reasonable. It's laid out right there. It's the Veda, but a deeper understanding of the Veda. But see, knowledge is structured in consciousness. And though I understand that, it's really difficult for me to say, oh, okay, well, that's their level of consciousness. That's what they're going to believe. You teach them a deeper knowledge and they're going to take it and spin it and it'll slip through their fingers anyway. So, why bother, in a way. It's not really why bother, but, I guess it'd be more like don't take it so seriously, or don't take it so much to heart, or, they're going to do what they do. And I've seen this, well, it's interesting in the West. Westerners seem to get onto it and I've been meditating for 10 years, therefore I have discernment, and therefore I have wisdom and knowledge, and I get the Veda. And you see that a lot in the West, I must say. And people all of a sudden, after a few years of meditating, however long, they think they're, enlightened beings. It's not like that. And I must say that I see more, I would say, maturity really in the East, in India. They may not necessarily have, a very profound level of intellectual sophistication of the understanding. Some do, but not all. But even the ones that don't, there's a level of humility there. They don't think, well, I was raised with, Hinduism and studying the Veda, and so I get it. There's more humility there. But, I'm really right now in this podcast, I'm opening my heart to you, I mean, that's what's going on, consciousness and the evolution of our consciousness. It's huge. It's a whole process of existence and the nature of existence. And what happens is that we take on a perspective, and maybe it's a perspective we were brought up with. Maybe it's a new perspective. We got onto the Veda. We studied the Veda for 10 years, meditated for 10 years. Therefore, we think we get it. But really, it's a perspective. And nobody, not me, not you, not anybody who has a human nervous system is totally going to get it. It's just levels, deeper and deeper levels of understanding. So I'm not sitting here saying that, I totally get it. That would be a lie. I have a human nervous system, for one thing. But now there is this other component, and it's really important to really understand this. And it's this notion of cognition, the idea of cognition. Cognition is something that was done by rishis, individuals that had nervous systems that you could say were not just human. They were beyond that, really. And they cognized Veda in its purity. And what are they doing there? And I've talked about this at length in the previous podcast, but there were those impulses of the absolute as it emerges, just as seed form right into relativity. It's called Shruti, and it's those impulses, sound impulses, the Veda, the very organizing power, the very nature of the intelligence and wisdom and harmony that is the source of all of this. And because they had such a refined physiology beyond what we have, those impulses were able to well up through their physiology and out through their senses, out through their vocal cords, and they chanted the Veda. They chanted, gave voice to, if you will, those subtle sounds. It requires an incredibly refined nervous system. And so we have that, and that's called cognition. And cognition is something very different from just perspective. It's not just another perspective. It's a physiological reality. And I'm talking about the physiology of the universe here, not just the physiology of an individual. And so I put down the phrase in my notes, how to know everything. Well, it depends on what you mean by the word know. Even with the human nervous system, you can awaken to that level of yourself. And we all sense this to some degree. So don't hear that and think, oh, okay, great, I'm enlightened because I sense it. No. You sense it to different degrees, but there's a level of pure awakening. There's 108 different types of awakenings. Like when you first learn to add 2 + 2 and learn a little bit about math, and it's like the light bulb goes on, that's an awakening. There are 108 different types of awakenings, and there are a myriad of subcategories to each of those 108. But there's one Maha awakening, and we can't confuse them. We can't equate them. The Maha awakening is what they refer to as enlightenment. It's extremely rare. And so in that sense, when you have that Maha awakening, that great awakening, then you know everything. What does that mean? It doesn't necessarily mean that you have all the facts. How many elephants exist in Africa? Okay, rattle it off, But it means you're awake to that level, fully awake to that level, which is the source of all knowledge. And so in that sense, you know everything. Ananda Mayama, great saint. They asked her, her picture's on the wall right behind me. They asked her, there are a couple of quotes from her. She said, I'm just a small child. She says, I don't understand anything. You have to explain everything to me. And then the very next quote in the book that I was reading about her, published in Germany, said something to the effect, I know everything. You see, and that's what she was referring to there. So there's limits upon our awareness. One, we have a human nervous system. The other is the programming, the conditioning, the perspectives that we cling to, that we've been indoctrinated into, the level of our awareness that limits our ability to even go deeper. So even when that's why I call the Veda the secret doctrines, because even after you hear all the secrets, they remain a secret to you, because knowledge is structured in consciousness. There's always a deeper understanding. I saw this Walt Whitman quote. I put it in my notes for this podcast, for this blog. He said, the real war will never get in the books. Now, I'm sure, he's talking, and it's a great quote. And I assume he's talking on the level of, what really happened in the Bolshevik Revolution, for example. But in a deepest sense, and maybe he was referring to this, the real war that never gets into the books is what I'm talking about right now. It's an internal war, but an internal war for all individuals and for the global consciousness as well. What are we going with? Are we going with the source of pure knowledge? Or are we going with our perspective on it? That we sense it, we still have a perspective on it because we don't have the refined physiology to really fully embody it. Now, this applies across the board, almost any topic. We talk about enlightened city, and we're wanting to build an enlightened city. And we got the plans from the cognitions of Mamuni Mayan. We have them, how to build it. And it's very interesting because, I'm kind of an all cards face up on the table kind of a guy, That's why I'm talking the way I am right now. Otherwise, I guess I'd go along with kind of the way the pundits seem to handle things. And, oh, well, that's where they're at. That's fine. I can't do it. I can't do it. And so it kind of set me aback when the Vedic architects, Stapati, said, don't share this knowledge of how to build an enlightened city. And for me, at first, it was like, I can't keep it secret. That's just not who I am. But the thing is, when you breathe it out, when you speak it out, it gets twisted. And sure enough, because we haven't given the details, but we've made mention of an enlightened city. And now I hear that people are cropping up around saying, oh yeah, we're building an enlightened city. They don't have the plans from Amuni Mayan. They're just doing some spin on the notion based on what? Their perspective, their preconceived notions, what they were indoctrinated into. So building an enlightened city, first you're given the plans, and then it becomes a question of your relationship with those plans. How humble are you in the nature of your relationship with them? And I talk about even building Mount Soma here in the Shiva temple, and how challenging it was to build something that's consistent with the Vedic literature, consistent with the Vedic teachings. And boy, I could have slipped and slid so many times along the way. I've told this story. And I tried to consult pundits and stuffities and stuff, everything. And, oh no, we don't know anything about it. And so I just made my decisions from inside of myself of what to do, how to do. And then it just turned out that after I built it, a guy came along that had these cognitions from a Muni Mayan, who was like, you know, call it Vishwakarma, the cosmic architect, you know. And we did it right. Everything consistent with those teachings. And I can't help feeling, and I don't like to get too emotionally about it, but it's almost like, you know, it was almost like I had to find it within myself before I would be given the information. I don't know. Some say Angkor Wat in where's it, Cambodia or wherever. Some people say, wasn't that an enlightened city? And I say, there is no enlightened city now. Even the Sapatis will tell you that. Now I'm not, but now there's a point here. I'm not saying Angkor Wat never was. I'm saying it's not now. I mean, it's not even functioning really. And that knowledge was lost when one of the kings, it started out to be Vedic, Hindu, and then somewhere along the line, somebody took it over and just kind of transformed into a Buddhist thing. And then the heart of the thing, which is a Brahmastan, some king wanted to be buried there. And so it's not. It's that knowledge was lost. That ship has sailed, you know. So I've learned to respect, at least, and I do my best to understand. But I do want to do it, and I'm thinking about doing this podcast on it, but then I got into this whole thing last night. So I didn't even do the podcast I was intending to do, but I want to do, there are some things I can talk about, the geometry, the structure of an enlightened city. And I want to do that. Maybe we'll do it next time. If you're interested, there's a Barabar Caves, B-A-R Caves in India, close to Bodh Gaya. That's where Bodh Gaya, I was in Bodh Gaya. It's a big Buddhist retreat center now. And that's where Buddha supposedly, I guess, that's where he gained his enlightenment, you know, under the banyan tree or what have you. At any rate, that's another highly sophisticated, you can read about it. Technology, how did they do it? There are caves around Bodh Gaya, you know. Remarkable, really, to just watch at least part of the video if you want to go to YouTube and just click on Barabar Caves, you know. All right, I think that covers everything I wanted to say. Scotty, did I leave anything out from my notes or anything? I don't think so.
No. That's good.
All right, everybody. Thanks for indulging me. I don't mean to sound like I'm venting. Maybe I am, but I just needed to share this. That's where I'm coming from, you know. Thanks for listening. Talk with you again next week.